here we are at the beginning. Hello folks, welcome back to another episode of Othercide Extras here at Gray Studios. And we're going to be taking a look at the Red Mother's memories and how she came to be. So, as you know by memories, if you've seen any footage on the game, memories are the shards that you get from destroying certain creatures to be getting the extra traits to add to your daughter's attacks, whether it be granting armor, boosting initiative, or increasing damage, to even getting an extra chance to attack and eating armor. So basically, what they also do is they also tell a story of the mother and, how she was when she was little, like she is now, to how she came to be up until her final moments. And we're going to be going down, and we're just going to be doing some reading. And I'm just going to provide some brief commentary as well. So let's get to it. Now this is here at the beginning. She's obviously, she's a child herself. And this is during the Age of Shattering. 1214. So basically, in our timeline, that's 800 years from now. And as we go down, she had a family. And as you see there, the family is worried because of her her pale skin, her white hair. That means, the reason for that being is that the townsfolk, or those around here, around her. Alright, restarting. Alright, so 4 years have passed since the question, etc., and a bunch of things happened. And basically, her white hair, her pale skin give her off away as some sort of a demon child to people around her. Anyway, long story short, this talks about how the family has to handle things and how strangers react to her as being a chosen one of another. And although they don't know that, they know that something is off of her due to her eyes, hair, and, just general appearance. Which sounds horrible, but that's what happens when you're chosen by another. Anyway, what generally happened was, she was at home. Obviously, she had to deal with some family issues. She talked to them about voices. It sounds like she was in a loving family, so that's a good thing. But the townsfolk were not so much, and the parents knew that she was different. And back then, different was bad, so much so that it was life-threatening. Long story short, eventually the townsfolk came up and chased her away, and all she could do was run during that time. And we're getting more down, as you see. Nothing really too new happening here with any of this. Feel free to pause as well. Oh, here we go. There we go. Now, see, this part here is where after she got chased out, she managed to encounter a guide of some kind. And this guide was due to being part of the Order of Nostalgia, or I think that's how you pronounce it. I might be wrong. I had to do some research beforehand, but yeah. Long story short, she grows up and then she is brought to the Far East, actually, which is, the kimono there. And from there, she is taught the way of the sword by her master. And for that being reason, the Order of Nostalgic, at least I hope that's how you pronounce it, is that they are to keep the veil in check and reality and unreality separated. And while she is a chosen one, chosen ones are generally hunted down and eliminated due to being basically the physical possessed bodies of, the other. So, 2 souls, 1 body. That sounds horrible. But moving on. She eventually keeps going through the training, swordsmanship, bare knuckle bruising, the waterfall thing to sharpen your mental focus. If any of you have seen any kind of Japanese culture of anime. Anyway, long story short, this goes on for several years. Anyway, long story short, she gets better, she starts to train, and she starts to encounter the creatures as well. Starts fighting these monsters that are terrorizing people from past the veil. Now, they don't look as nearly misshapen as the creatures that are being fought in the Age of Shattering, or, that dark corner, but there's still some key differences. Not to mention as well, finding other children or other people who have the same traits as her and possess an other, aka chosen ones. At any rate, she starts to know that since she was different, she was alone, and she's been alone for quite some time, with nothing to really keep her company, nor anyone to understand her other than the other that's possessed her, the other being memory. And since the other that possesses her is memory, she has a keen... Well, she's got good memory. She's got perfect memory, actually. And because she's also an immortal, she is able to both remember all her past as well as manage and adapt any skills that she comes across. Hence why she was one of the best warriors in history, with the swords, not the spear and the shield as well. Well, anyway, it's not just mispronunciation on my part, but also the way of the gun when we get up to, the more recent years before her demise. As things start to occur and events unfold, tears in the veil starts occurring, creatures start coming out, and the child and a chosen one is found. Now, there's a moment that happens between her and her master. At first, the two didn't get along, especially since she was a chosen one. But, well, time changes. But, regardless of that, her master did not change her ideal or her opinion on other chosen ones. The mother being, an exception to this, though. And as you see here with this part here, Defiance, what happens is exactly that. They find a chosen one, and after a small event occurs with some creatures getting out of the veil and them being taken care of, the chosen one is basically cornered, bound, and the mother's master turns her blade towards the chosen one. And with the mother being a chosen one herself, feels for this chosen one that is, about to die. So she gets in between the two, drawing her sword to her master. Now at this point though, a lot of time has passed decades even. And the two have a strong bond, but neither of them are willing to resolve either their ideals. So, what happens next is simple. They fight. And now the mother lives with the guilt and regret of slaying her master, her friend, her mentor. A lot of things, really. And it was a sad event, but especially for her since her other is memory. And as I said earlier, she has a perfect memory. She's gonna be able to remember each and every little thing that happens, whether it be good or bad. Unfortunately though, in her case, a lot of bad. Years go on and she becomes a master herself, training her students, regretting. Until we get to the Crusade area, or Crusade era, I should say. Not area. Vocabulary error, my bad. But anyway, it's in the era of the Crusades in Europe. You got the peasants revolting. You got different factions and kings of knightlyhood wanting to claim lands. You know, just a time of instability and holy wars. And, well, the mother, being no exception and being familiar with combat, takes up arms against the dark forces that would plague this. I.e., you know, the other others, or the dark others, like suffering. But, as she does that, she encounters a paladin. Very cheerful and happy paladin as well. And throughout the years of ever since she slayed her master, which was during this point, 30 years ago, or almost 30 years ago, she basically had to go to around Europe area to fight in the Crusades. From there, she encountered a paladin. I didn't really finish that earlier, but at first, it was basically, you know, just resentment and not really wanting to get close with anyone. Obviously, issues being immortal. I mean, at this timeline, 1397, all her relatives that she knew have been dead at this point. Especially since, you know, it's 1397. Lifespans of people were much, much shorter back then. And, you know, the death of her master was another such incident that left a scar on her heart. She had some good memories, but she also had a lot of bad ones. One of the good memories that she came apart, though, was a paladin. And he was, as I said earlier, he was positive, he was a happy fellow. She was not. She kind of gave him a cold shoulder a lot of time, but he eventually grew on her. Eventually, though, time passed, and as they were quelling the Khans and the Knights pushing further and further upon this empire that was basically leaving a genocide in their wake. The genocide was actually led by, you know, one of the emperors who was actually being possessed by another. Which other, I don't know. I cannot say because I don't have the details for that. However, the veil at this point, though, around that area was a little more torn than the others. And the creatures there being a lot more easier to identify. Anyway, long story short, the war ends. And they eventually begin to settle. Now at this point, war's over, they have their happy time, the two grew close to each other. So, of course, what happens? The two start to get lovey-dovey. And the years go on. And due to her conditions, however, she's immortal, but having to share her body with a primordial being, it's gonna leave some strain, regardless of her being immortal. And it's because of this that it has left her to being infertile, basically. Or at least unable to have children. Now, regardless of that instance, that's where the daughters come in, because she did want to become a mother, but she was just unable to. That's why the daughters, which are the pieces of her soul, are the closest thing to that. Her daughters. But eventually that happens. She's immortal. He's not. And keep in mind, the timeline. Like, that's 1457. Alright, this guy's lived past what we would consider today as seniors. And back then, that's a feat in of itself. But still, he just wasn't immortal. And because of that, he passed of age. And the mother was left alone. Again, heartbroken. Husbandless and, childless due to her conditions. None of which is her fault. It's just being a chosen one. At any rate, however, she became more hollow. She had happy times, but now that they were gone, all that were left were miserable times. From there, she says goodbye to the place. The area where her master taught her, and where she taught her pupils, and where she lived with her dear paladin. But none of them were there. Even her pupils. Her pupils were pretty much dead at this point from age, or from conflict. Unable to bear it all, she basically sets fire to the place. Not wanting to go back because she never could. She didn't like that area anymore. It just reminded her, made her sad. Alright, so huge time leap here. Almost 400 years. Obviously, this is a time where the Wild Wild West was starting to form and bloom. Gunshots here and there. And this is where she started to start hunting for other chosen ones. Not to, actually eliminate, but to rescue. That became her new lifelong mission goal, because those were the only ones that she could really relate to. But she knows what they've been through, since regardless of what chosen one you had, the similar traits you had were bleach white hair, skin as gray as ash, potentially pupils in the eyes, although it's not confirmed, and immortality. That really, 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 really fun topic that everyone loves and wishes for, but in reality it would just be a nightmare. It would forever be a nightmare. I do not want immortality. Who wants immortality? A lot of people do, but really, that'd just be a nightmare. I mean, our reality is not as dark as this person's or the mother's, but like, seriously, wow. Anyway, off topic. Alright, anyway, long story short, she starts working with the guides and the Order of Nostalgic and whatnot to try and find chosen ones to rescue. Anyway, time goes on. She meets a group of people who are also hunting for any of the creatures that pop out of the veil. Or any corrupted creatures as well. Since, the veil or beyond could corrupt, twist, and remake people as well. Now, that being said, though, she did have to keep her identity still a secret because obviously people are going to be bedazzled that their friend is a 8. No, not 8. Around just over 700 years old. Yeah. And since they hunt creatures from the Veil, they might assume she would also be a chosen one. But they do find out eventually. But rather than hostility, it's basically just calm acceptance. In fact, one of them is excited because that way he can find and do research, because with her being a chosen one, they can peer into the Veil and see the others, see their world. But that being said, things happened. Experiments were taking place, and basically relationships were destroyed. The Veil had what was beyond, had things that no mortal people were meant to see. It was just too shocking, too eldritchy, too different, unlike the reality they knew. But things start to take a dark turn for worse as well. At any rate, now she heads back to the Order, where she rescued all the Chosen Ones. And apparently the Order has conducted experiments. That might be why the Doctor's lore came in as well, but regardless, these chosen ones were experimented on, obviously, and these were all the ones that she had struggled to save as well, that were like her. But, you know, again, she felt guilty and blamed herself because she rescued him and brought him there. She feels like she's the source of the pain. So, in order to, you know, make amends or whatnot, she decided to end her pain. And by doing that, I mean she basically massacred every single chosen one that she had rescued in the place. She didn't want them to be miserable anymore, and I mean being experimented on, if you saw in the child's lore, yeah, it would do a lot to a person. And being 700 to 800 years old at this point, I mean, you've seen some stuff. Especially when you're dealing with things that don't exist in your reality. Anyway, at this point, she starts to really get depressed about things. She's lost basically everyone that she cares about. Her current party that she was with basically are scared of her. They fear her. They don't have any type of connection whatsoever. And she's alone. And she's, as you can see in the background, she still has her lover paladin shield. Probably still has the sword that she got from her master, and well, it's not there, but somewhere. All in all, though, I mean, for 600 years, she's been through a lot. And she's just generally had a rough life, even before immortality. But eventually, it all ends. And then she is called to a city. A city where the child, the chosen one of suffering, starts to grow. And that's the biggest terror that the Veil has ever heard. Basically, it turns into the dark corner. Everything that you see basically in the game. Alright, that becomes that over there. I know I'm not exactly explaining this properly, but just hear me out. Alright, so as you can see there, the mother, or the picture-wise, I mean, she's been through a lot of combat. She shows up at the city area where all the creatures are leaking from. And at this point, since it's the biggest tear in the veil that anyone has ever encountered so far, the creatures are obviously easy to identify. And they are given the most inhumane, grotesque shape that probably anyone can think of. Anyone that's seen like any kind of Eldritch movies or whatnot, anything related to aliens or just crazy stuff like that. So at this point, she's fighting these creatures off one by one, as well as others from the Order, and maybe a few civilians, because things are going to things are burning down real quick. Especially since we got, creatures and a child with his other growing ever more stronger into reality. So, currently unknown, they keep pushing forward. Eventually, numbers break down, people get dragged into the depths or into buildings, etc. Crazy cultists, creatures, things just start getting messy. But regardless, eventually the numbers were just too great despite the 600 years of training she had. And while she wasn't mortal, that was just with time. She lost an arm, she would lose an arm forever. She'd get shot, she'd still bleed. She got stabbed through the heart, she'd still die. She was tougher than most other people, but that was only because her other prevented her from aging, and because of her training. I mean, 600 years is bound to turn you into a warrior monster. At any rate, the city starts to be taken apart. Reality starts to crumble around the area. At that point, more knowledge is taken in that the mother finds out about who the avatar of suffering is, and it's a child. And that apparently this child has gone through, the same nightmare stuff that she has, because after all, his child is the other, the child's other is the other of suffering. And suffering gets power by spreading suffering, which is exactly what they're doing. And suffering, being one of the oldest and most powerful primordial beings in that passive veil, he's very, very close to tearing it up, if he hasn't torn it up already and shattered it. So regardless, she keeps fighting, but eventually exhaustion takes hold. And after knowing what has happened to the child, she makes a vow to try and rescue the child, or at least that's what her attempts are. But even then, with all the fighting, she just can't keep up, despite having all the years of training. Just the endless numbers of Suffering's army just kept pouring through. Blitzkrieg by numbers of evil eldritch creatures born out of people's nightmares. And in the last moment, she starts to feel regret, pain. She remembers all the people who, made her sad. All the people who made her happy, like her master and her lover, the paladin. Her training. But eventually she tries to push for one last effort. A last stand, per se. So eventually she does come face to face with the child. But the child being still angry and, full of rage due to his friend the maid dying due to the disease that he carried, he was still hostile towards anything that would, the world itself, but especially hostile to anyone that would try to oppose. And the mother, being the super soldier that she is, could not be let go. And as the child did his thing, he screamed and shattered the city, and destroyed the mother's body along with it. Hence why the mother, having the outfits from both her days at being in the Far East, earning away a sword, to fighting in the Crusade, to now wearing a kind of a Western getup for gunslinging, is basically blown to pieces. Literally. Or at least left into a bloody mess. And just like that, the mother died, but not before taking all her memories and the pieces that were made of her soul, making not a physical body, but a body of will, similar to that of the other. And from there, she teamed up with the other, taught her other memory how to lead the daughters, create daughters, fight, etc. And eventually, the mother vanished. The mother vanished. She just vanished. She was only temporary, unfortunately. At least as far as I know. And the only existence of her is that her personality and everything on that is put into memory. Her other, which survived. So in her place, memory, because not all the others are bad. Memory is just memories. Memory loved the time that it spent with her chosen one, the mother. So she basically takes up her cause and basically becomes like her, and develops a personality very similar to hers, if not exact, and proceeds to fight, suffering, and rescue the child. And I'm not going to do any spoilers here along the future because this is about the past. And thus, I am going to end it here in this long-winded explanation and this lore. So, that being said, folks, if you did like this video and you thought it was informative, even though I actually did talk a lot, despite it being so long, I thought it would be a lot shorter than that. But yeah, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, helps me out a lot. Don't forget to share. Check out my YouTube channel, The Grey Cog. Sorry, not YouTube channel, Twitch. Yeah, it's been a long night. And a lot of talking. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, have a happy day, folks. Bye-bye. And sweet nightmares. I, of course, will do this one last little thing here, so in case you want to see or miss anything, you can pause the video and do some reading up, because after all that, my voice is it's dry, to say the least. Although I might be too quick as well. But anyway, have a good night.